to that. Now let's transition to talk about how far Parliament has come and the work they've been able to do. Caroline, you have a new report. Perhaps you may want to give us a few insights into the work of Parliament in 2025.
Okay, and let me put a disclaimer that this year we've not done the scorecard as we know it.
Yep.
So what you have is probably just an assessment, a fast assessment of what Parliament has been able to achieve in 2025.
Yeah.
We'll probably be using the same balance you've used for CBE. You know, it's an assessment, so has it met expectations, exceeded, failed, all that, yeah. But basically what we've done is just been looking at what Parliament has been done for the last 1 year, has done for the last 1 year, the bills it's passed, the highs and the lows, and, you know, the citizen perception of Parliament in what it feels has been the high moments and the low moments. And maybe as we get into the program, we could discuss some of the numbers.
Right.
But basically just to say that as Mzalendo celebrated 20 years last week, one of the things we've been doing is take a look back at how Parliament has evolved over time. And so this year we wanted to look inwards and also just go back and reflect on some of the changes, both positive and negative, that we've seen, and also start exploring how we move forward, including our own internal assessments that we undertake. Yeah.
Right. For you, Franklin, when you're looking at Parliament in 2025, what comes to mind?
I think we can see that year to year, Parliament has made more laws, which is one of their mainstay. That if you look at the period between 23-24, alone, there were less bills done in that period compared to 2025 alone. But also speaks to how much control the executive still has over the legislature.
Yeah.
You look at the average time that it takes for a private member's bill to come to fruition as an act, it's quite long. But how much the executive has a firm control. They can actually push through a legislation just in a period of 3 days. The third point I want to raise is the challenge around public participation. That is still not very rooted. It's quite unfortunate that the members of Parliament are here and they will still explain to us a bill as important as the appropriations, you know. I think it's the budget adjustments that can just go through in a very short period of time without really looking into, you know, a budget is a good process. It's a very important detail that Parliament needs to engage the public. But that's such a piece of legislation going through without public participation is something significant. But I want to dwell much on the aspect of the structure of what we gave ourselves as a government, as a political system. And it's increasingly clear, Sam, that in a presidential minority-majority system that we have bestowed ourselves, the stranglehold by the executive on the legislature is not something that we are going to see it loosen in a short while. Not just explained in the order of business and also the quantity of business that particularly the National Assembly is transacting, but also on just the effect that has to political parties. Yeah. That you see there's less and less members of Parliament who can apply their own principle and their own mind to critical issues. Yeah. Because the issues you have to toe the party line, and especially in the era where there is a very thin line between the minority and majority. You either towing the line or you're being de-whipped. There's very little room for legislators to apply their mind. And what extent is this challenge just beyond the legislative role that we see the executive dominating, but also going into the committee work of oversight and representation? At what extent does it affect the morale of the individual MPs, because we also have quorum issues? Are the quorum challenges we are witnessing related to the Honorable Ote or Honorable Karoli saying, in as much as these ministers are showing up, these CSs are showing up, yes. You know, the way these things are happening, I'm not finding myself very valuable. And I'll come back to this, Trevor, Sam, at the end of it. I think leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership. I am one Kenyan who must go on record that I'm particularly very unhappy with the leadership at the legislature, more particularly at the National Assembly. I think it could be better, you know, with strong-minded speakers that really are leading an independent institution. And it hurts me as a Democrat. It hurts me as a democratic development worker to see a leader of an independent institution hanging out, aiding the aid of the president over weekends. It is not how business should be transacted. There must be some level of quality, some level of principle, some level of leadership that we must demand of Honorable Wetangula beyond the small politics that he wants to play with such a very important position.
Interesting. We're just getting started. Mheshimiwa Karoli Omondi, your appreciation of Parliament in 2025?
Let me start by just talking about our Singapore pathway. I think today Parliament, the Cabinet will be passing some, I hear some, proposals on our route map to Singapore. As they do that, I just want to encourage Cabinet to remember that you don't get to Singapore by establishing funds and those kind of things. You get to Singapore by doing two things. One, institutionalizing our values. Article 10, Article 232. So I hope today they will talk about national values and how to make them a way of life in this country. That is how Singapore was built. The first thing they did was to introduce nationhood science and to inculcate national values from lower grades all the way to the top. The second thing is to make sure that institutions are strengthened. Yeah, you must have strong institutions to take you to Singapore. So just establishing a fund or talking about 5 trillion, that will not help us. Those are the things we want to hear from the executive in respect of that dream. Secondly, when it comes to our Parliament, and I'm just 2.5, 3 years old there with my friend Lotte here, if we use the current grading system, I would say we have performed below average, below expectations. Yes, I think that would be a fair assessment. And why? It is to do with a variety of factors. If you come to Parliament, the staff are very good. Let me start by saying that. I've worked in government as a civil servant before, but I've not been in an organization, except in the old Treasury and parts of the Attorney General in the early days, where you truly found competent civil servants, people who were properly trained, who understood what they were doing. Parliament has some of the best staff I've ever worked with. Yeah, they are very good. The members of staff, those who assist us, are very, very good people. And for me, I don't want to blame the Speaker, because I understand how Parliament works. The Speaker is as good as the members of that House. I would not want to blame the Speaker, because he does not vote on anything. Yeah. And if parliamentarians were focused and were able to work across the aisle and party lines, they would make Parliament work. The Speaker would respond to their needs. So my problem is with the political parties, not even with the executive. The problem we have is state capture. We call it state capture, but we make it sound like it is the executive that has captured Parliament. The people who have messed Parliament are the political parties. They've brought in incompetent people into their activities who have found their way into Parliament. And then the leadership of the political parties have also been weak. If the political parties have become cheering and jeering crowds, all of them. So members who are good, members who can want to do their things, who want just to work with other colleagues, can't do it because of the political parties. And I hope going forward, Kenyans will wake up and disabuse this idea that people must coalesce around mainstream political parties. Actually, some of the best members of Parliament are either independent or they're in mainstream parties, but they are not cheerleaders. Yes, my friend Lotte here will tell you. And across the board, you'll find very good members of parliament. We have a gentleman called Toroy Tich. He's an independent elected in Marakwet.
Right.
And every time he tries to assert his voice, the UDA crowd come for him. Yeah? It has happened to us, ourselves, the ODM group. Yet you'll also find within UDA, they are very competent members. Cynthia Muge of Nandi, the lady, yeah, is very good, and they do their work and they take their work very seriously. Oundo of Busia, there are very many good members, but they can't operate because of the political parties. And there's a big problem there. Parliament right now, apart from being captured by political parties, is dysfunctional. You find the minority leader who is supposed to be in opposition is the one prosecuting government business and being cheered and egged on by members of the minority side. Yeah? And they imagine if you exercise a bit of independent judgment, then you are anti-government. You are just doing your work as a parliamentarian. You are not being anti-anybody. Yeah? And use of time, very wasteful in parliament. We waste a lot of time in parliament. The minority leader, the majority leader have so much time to talk, they sometimes turn parliament into a rally, where they don't discuss what the issues are. They begin to condemn the person they disagreed with over the weekend. Things they should say in a rally find their way into parliament. Bills, I have 8 bills I've proposed in parliament. Only 2 are now at the government printer, and it has been more than a year. They take so long in committees. And if you see in our processes of vetting, they are so perfunctory, you get embarrassed that we're even doing vetting in that house. So there are a lot of problems in Parliament. Some are structural, the way we conduct the business of the House. We need to look at the standing orders. Members speak for 10 minutes, and sometimes they just speak to fill the time when they have not. If you go to House of Law, even House of Commons, people don't speak for 10 minutes. You are not given 10 minutes. Here, we are so used to wasting time, yeah, that somebody will be given 30 minutes. That is a majority. What is he saying in 30 minutes? If you can't condense your points, when the white people were teaching us here, there was a subject called précis or something in English. You have to crystallize your thoughts. Yeah, but...
So the 30 minutes is in the standing orders?
There, you know, the leadership sit and they give themselves this. Yes, they put them in the standing orders. And they come in there, they can even select who will speak, who will not speak. You know, there are so many things that happen in Parliament. That's why I'm saying you can't
we'll talk
blame,
about that in
you
detail.
can't blame the speaker.
As we unpack this conversation. Mheshimiwa Lotte, your first time, what would you say has been your experience?
Well, I think the way Karoria said, as a member of Parliament, this is my first time. The product of Parliament is actually a reflection of what Kenyans want. Because it's Kenyans that give us the leadership, the leaders that go into Parliament. And I think immediately we are now going into a political system. We're going into political campaigns. Kenyans do not look at individuals at their capacities. They look at the parties they're coming through. They look at the wallets that they walk around with. They look at the influences, irrespective of how best or how good they can be able to represent them in Parliament. So when we look at Parliament and we start condemning Parliament, we will need to condemn ourselves as Kenyans, because there are very good people out there, probably, who will have actually been able to make Parliament.
Is that you gaslighting Kenyans?
I'm not castigating Kenyans. I'm only asking Kenyans that when people come to you, do not look at their wallet, do not look at their political parties, probably try to look at individuals. And I think Karoli has given examples of members of Parliament who are independent. Those members who elected the independent members saw a gem in them. And when they're in Parliament, they're able to prosecute issues of Parliament well. But the fact that we bring everybody because they're coming through a big political party or because they've got money to buy us, then we might get a lot of members who are not able to make Parliament perform. But that notwithstanding, I do not want to say that Parliament this year has failed. I'm trying to compare Parliament of 2025 and Parliament of 2024. I think Parliament of 2024 was really condemned by Kenyans. If we look at the finance bill and we look at the issues surrounding even the legislations that came through, the laws that were passed in 2024, 2023, Frank has said it very well. This year, there are a lot of laws that probably went a little bit, more laws were passed in Parliament vis-a-vis the previous time. We've actually seen very good laws that have been passed in Parliament. The insurance professional bill, you actually know, we've actually seen the insurance companies here in this country. If you ever insure your vehicle, just a vehicle as example, and you get an accident with a matatu here, then that is why you realize that the insurance company are there to make money for themselves and not to help you secure your property. So that kind of a bill came through. We've actually seen the scrutinization bill, we've seen the importation policy bill, we've seen the classifications of roads. So there are several bills that are very helpful that were passed this year by Parliament, which I can say Parliament has a little bit improved from the previous year, 2024. And even the public rating, if public were to rate Parliament of now and 2024, I'll tell you, members of public will say the Parliament this year has improved. Because even when we talk about the Finance Bill 2025, it was not condemned like the Finance Bill 2024. Because unlike 2024, where people thought the public participation was completely thrown out, this year, at least people say we got a finance bill that was a little bit over ours. That notwithstanding again, I'll come to a little bit of what Carolia said in terms of experience.
Just for you, before you take the break, for you to give me, your colleague says it's below expectation. Yourself, how would you rate it?
Well, I will say, I will go with him. I will go with him because there is an expectation of what people...
You agree with him?
Why? I agree with him.
That's contradictory from what you just said.
I have said, comparatively between 24 and 25, we are better. That is what I've said.
So
but in terms of the overall, if you get an E last year and you get a D this year, it basically means you're better this year, but we have not reached the expectation. Probably the expectation will be a D or a C. So where we are, we have a lot of things that we will need to do. What he has actually said is very, very important. We've seen this year a coalition. This is the first time where we've seen the opposition and the ruling government sitting together. In fact, if you go to Parliament now, you sit anywhere. You can sit on the left, you can sit on the right. You can clap for anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who speaks.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It is not a very good thing. The reason why we've got a constitution that allows us to have the minority and the majority was that for the check and balances in Parliament. But if you find that all of them are sleeping in the same bed, you do not know who is the leader of majority, who is the leader of minority, what the leader of... In fact, some of the bills are proposed, government bills are proposed by the leader of minority. What do you expect of a time?
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation, and Caroline will also be helping us understand in terms of the numbers, if Parliament performed better in 2025 versus 2024, exactly what we're talking about, because numbers do not lie. We're back in a moment.